Okay, everybody, we are back. We are back. And Monica, why don't you introduce this young gentleman right in front of us?
Well, he's been on our show before. I think he was one of my very first guests.
That's right.
Remember?
Yes.
Back in the day when I first started Let's Connect Now, before you came on into the picture. Well, you were just
I was in the picture. I was just behind the camera.
Yeah, you were just
That's called
behind
out of
camera.
the picture.
Yeah.
Yeah. So welcome back, Steve Bennett.
Thank you, guys. Great to be back. It's wonderful to be here.
We enjoy all of the conversations that we have with you. Every time we see you, you're just full of information. And I know that you have your own podcast. So why don't you formally introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your podcast and what you're doing.
So for everyone who doesn't know, my name is Steve Bennett. I'm a lifelong resident of the city of West Covina. I lived here for over 50 years. Literally born at Queen of the Valley Hospital. Came home to the home that I currently own and have lived at my entire life.
Wait, did you just say 50 years?
50 years, yeah. I'm not as young as you make it out to be for everyone. Thank you for calling me young, but 50 is not young in some people's eyes.
I was about to ask for your ID for 21. But
yeah, when I used to bartend, I used to ask everybody for ID. It usually meant I got better tips from certain people. But no, so I've lived here 50 years plus. Like I said, I'm one of the rare individuals that can say that I've literally lived in one address my entire life.
Nice.
So I was born and raised here, literally came home from Queen of the Valley, went to the house that I inherited from my parents, and I now own that house after both my parents have passed away and have raised my son in that house. So I've literally got 50 years at one address. The house is slowly being remodeled, but eventually it'll look beautiful again. Unfortunately, my parents, as they got older, it went into disrepair. But yeah, no, it's wonderful to be here. I love the city. There's nowhere that I wouldn't consider home except for West Covina. I mean, it's just a great city.
But your podcast, you do a podcast.
I do.
But you're on hiatus, but go ahead and explain.
Yeah, so it's kind of a unique thing. As you guys know, I work full-time, so I have a regular job. So it's hard to podcast when you have a full-time job. You got to find time to do that.
Right.
But I started a podcast because of my love for the city, because of what I enjoy here. I decided to start a podcast that focuses on the city of West Covina and the surrounding area, because you can't have West Covina without the surrounding cities.
Correct.
And so I've worked with a number of people to come in, various city representatives from government. I've had the chief of police on. I've had council members on. I've had members of the public from businesses on. I've had residents on. And the idea is to highlight various aspects that are part of our city, things that I grew up with, things that are popular now, whatever it may be, and it's been fairly successful. To your point on the hiatus, I've been really busy with some other tasks, so I've had a little time off. The last few things that I did, I went outside my scope. I actually did a really good show on something called the Ramona Bowl in Hemet, California. It's a little outside West Covina, but they were celebrating their 100th anniversary as California's oldest outdoor play. And it focuses on the Native American history in California. It's really a cool episode. And
I was about to ask you, too, what's one of your favorite episodes? And you just went right for it.
I did, yeah. He can't choose what his favorite episode is yet, because I still,
Oh, we haven't been on it.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
I don't know.
My favorite episode is to come, because I haven't had the star of this show on my episode. No, but, to answer your question, all of the show's been great. I've been fortunate that I know a lot of people in the city, and I've been able to get them in. And the one that really resonated with me from a historical perspective was the Hemet, California, the Ramona Bowl. But here in West Covina, I've had Brian Jobst on to talk about BKK and the history of the BKK landfill. I've had the chief of police on. We went through various aspects of the police department. It's probably one of my longest interviews, and kudos to the chief for muscling through that. And I've had a few others. I've had businesses on. It's just been, it's such a great thing to do. So the podcast name is Talk to Us West Covina.
Talk to Us West Covina.
And so you can go to Talk to Us West Covina on any of your podcast platforms. It's an audio podcast, so you're welcome to listen to it while you're driving. Most episodes run 20, 30 minutes to about 45 minutes to an hour.
And your purpose is just to get information out for the community?
Yeah, it's more or less informational. Yeah, it was never meant to be let's put Steve Bennett's ideas out there. I really wanted to look at it from a perspective of bringing the people that make up this community and getting their opinions and their history and their thoughts. There's now a number of podcasts actually in the city, but mine was one of the earlier ones. We started about the same time, actually. You guys just have beautiful people on the show. Mine is all audio.
Oh, you're talking about Monica. Oh,
Yeah,
I was going to say me. Oh, wow. Okay.
I have a face for radio, so let's face that open.
No, I've said it before. You have a great voice.
Yeah, I like your voice.
So,
Thank
you. It's always it's just nice, and I always recognize voices because I know he has a nice voice. voice as well.
Oh, I do.
And since my dad is in the radio, I got to hear a lot of people always, their voices on the radio, and you guys both have great voices. So, but we're really proud of you. Thank you so much for coming on again and for sharing everything
Yes.
that you are doing. And I love the fact that you highlight these individuals because they deserve it, right? Because West Covina, we're just full of history, full of great leaders and not so great leaders. I have to say that. So thank you for agreeing to be here today. Really appreciate you.
I'll come anytime you ask me. It's such a great time every time I'm here. And, I love you guys. I love what the GWC does. I love everything about it. So good job, guys.
Thank you. So currently, what are we working on other than, I know you say you're on hiatus from your podcast. So what else are we doing right now?
Yeah, so it's a great question. I wish I was doing more episodes. I've been talking to people about coming on, but I got involved in a project that's, I believe, near and dear to me and also many people in the city. It's a political project, so it's always one of those sticky questions and sticky answers. But I have started working with the committee that is trying to recall Councilman Tony Wu in the city. So it's taken a lot of time. It's taken a lot of effort. We are doing quite well there, but that was basically something that I felt I needed to focus some effort on, and so I went ahead and backed off from the podcast for now. I will restart it once we determine where the outcome of this recall goes.
And what is the purpose of this recall, Steve?
Great question. I love people that ask me that question. So Tony Wu is a council member here in the city of West Covina, was originally elected around, I think, 2015, was reelected in 2018, and reelected again in 2022. In 2018, he also got two other people elected onto the council, and his famous quote in the San Gabriel Valley Tribune was, "I now have my majority." Since that quote, since that majority, the city has faced some, in my opinion and many others, some turbulence. We've had a city manager fired. Well, actually, we've had now two city managers fired, or they've resigned in lieu of resignation, in lieu of termination. We've lost two or three deputy city managers, assistant city managers. We've lost an assistant city clerk. We've lost a police chief. We've lost a fire chief. We've lost a planning director. We've lost a human resources director or two. So when you look at the top...
In a very short period of time? That's a lot right now. You're saying a lot.
Pretty much most of that has happened since 2018 after Tony got his majority.
Wow.
So you end up with, 90 days. We have an ordinance in our city that we can't fire a city manager 90 days until after 90 days after an election. So 91 days after the 2018 election, city manager Freeland was fired. Or resigned in lieu of, and they give him a settlement package to settle his contract. Within around 30 days, there was another city manager appointed, City Manager Carmody. He was appointed as the interim or acting city manager at that time, and he was a longtime friend of Tony Wu's. They've met through political channels or whatnot. As soon as Mr. Carmody was here, City Manager Carmody was here, within that 30 days, both the police chief and the fire chief were both terminated. And the assistant city manager at that time left, basically was forced out to some degree. It's an opinion, but if you talk to that assistant city manager, they'd probably agree. And then it just continues, right? It just continues.
Okay.
Fire chief, police chief, city managers, assistant city managers, department heads, human resources directors, finance directors, you name it, they've all gone.
But how does something like this continue to go on? Because, doesn't the community find these things out? Or, don't not enough people do their research?
Really, that's the answer. Most people are so involved in their personal lives, as we all are, right?
Yeah, right.
They go to work, they come home, they work with their families, or do whatever they do. Their personal lives are just, that's it. They don't really get involved with what's going on in the city. And some of them have the belief of, hey, I'm able to go to the mall, have dinner, or go to a restaurant, have dinner, shop, whatever it is, and I don't see any major issues. But when you look a little bit deeper, you notice that the city has less police officers on staff. You notice that we have a larger homeless crisis than we did 5, 10, 15 years ago.
Yes, we do.
Crime is a big deal. Some of the stuff starts at Sacramento down, but a lot of the stuff here comes down to the managing of the city's budget, the tax dollars, the various decisions that our council makes. And when you have a person who's sitting on a city council in I'm going to call it a leadership role, but really what it is, it's a dictatorship role, because he's got 2 or 3 people up there that will vote with him however he wants, and he helped get them elected. They are his, lack of a better way to put it, subordinates.
So in some way they feel obligated.
Sure, probably.
Because, like I would, if someone helped me, like right now, she's giving me the opportunity to be a part of the GWC and everything. So I feel grateful and,
Right.
and want to do whatever I need to do, type
Right.
thing.
As any employee would think, yes. And when you're an elected official, you have the ability, because you can't be removed from office unless you're recalled or voted out.
Okay,
So
okay.
those two basically can do whatever they want to do up there, and the residents have very little recourse. What we've done with the recall in the committee that I'm a part of is we've taken what was a situation that was basically unrectifiable and have now given the residents a choice to say, we're done, we're fed up, this is enough. And there's countless other things that he's been doing, everything from threats to employees. There's been investigations. And then, when you look at some of the decisions that he's been instrumental in, he wanted to build a luxury hotel on top of a toxic waste dump at BKK.
Oh, wow.
And that's heavily opposed by residents, and so you end up with those sportsplex. If you guys remember, it used to be called Big League Dreams.
Yeah.
That's a company,
Yeah.
Right.
It's
yes.
actually a sportsplex, but the company Big League Dreams ran it. Tony was instrumental in severing that relationship, saying that the city could run it better. There's almost nothing going on up there unless it's a city-sponsored event, and it's dead 95% of the time.
So, Steve, how does someone get so much power to do what they do in the city council? I thought it was 5 people. How did it
Yes.
become 1 person?
Well, if that person helped get 2 people elected, and if that person is influencing those 2 people to vote the way he wants or to push the agenda that he wants, then he has the ability to get the majority vote every time something comes before council. So a good example is, for those who don't know, the city of West Covina has voted, the council, the majority that we're talking about, Tony's group, has voted to sever ties with the Los Angeles County Health Department and to establish a health department here in the city of West Covina. At no time in this year and a half that they've been down this process have they given any financial study to determine what this will cost the city. But we know that when you go to San Dimas and other cities who've done these studies, because they're good councils, they've came back and said it's going to cost tens of thousands, tens of millions of dollars to establish and run a health department. City of Pasadena has their own, Long Beach has their own. They're the only 2 in Southern California that have their own. And they even spend tens of millions of dollars a year.
So you already know.
We already know, but our city, for whatever reason, with the direction that Tony has been pushing everyone, has basically said, we don't need to know how much, we're going to go down the path anyways.
But
And
isn't that their responsibility, though?
it is their responsibility. And as taxpayers, as people that we are here in the city, it is important for us to demand the responsible spending of our tax dollars. We should not have government officials taking our money. It's our money, all of us who pay taxes here in the city of West Covina, and spending it on frivolous projects. We currently pay property taxes and get the county health department as part of our services. So what he is suggesting is all that money is still going to go to LA County Department of Health and the LA County Board of Supervisors to determine. We're going to then have to fund a health department without any of that money, all out of our own city budget. And they keep saying, oh, it'll be cost neutral. How?
So do they need a partnership with other neighboring cities in order for this health department to actually happen, or is it just going to be for servicing West Covina?
So they keep saying that they're going to make it regional, right? But again, none of the staff reports, none of the studies, none of the investigations as to how this will work have been done. So while they're up there talking, it's just lip service. They're just saying things. They're talking out there, trying to convince people this is a great idea. The problem is there's nothing to substantiate it. There's nothing to back it up. Whereas all these other departments in Southern California and other cities who looked at the same thing, they've all went away from it because they've said, we can't afford this. We already pay property taxes to LA County. We get the service, in essence, for free. It's included in our property tax. We don't want to pay for another one. San Dimas did a study, and it was tens of millions of dollars, and they went, yeah, it's not for us. So to answer your question, if other cities come in and start, paying for things, will it offset? Sure, it will help bring down the cost, but it's not gonna make it cost neutral. There's no way to do that. And as what they're saying is, okay, we're going to provide permits and do health inspections at restaurants. Okay, well, how much are you expecting to make these residents, these businesses, pay for these inspections? LA County, it's subsidized across the whole county, but now you want the city. So how much are these small businesses going to have to pay, these restaurants or whatever
Right,
revolves a health department? And then that's going to get passed down to the residents. because those businesses have to make a profit to stay in business.
Correct.
So we're going to pay more when we go get food. We're going to pay more when we go get whatever it is. And so ultimately it just trickles down. And so everything that they're offering to do or trying to do with this health department is going to cost us tens of thousands. They've already spent nearly $1 million out of the American Rescue Funds. That's the COVID money that the government, the U.S. government, gave us to use for things. And there's things you can use it for and things you can't. Well, they've blown nearly $1 million already for a department that's going to be cost neutral.
Wow, that. And you know, in the community, what's not fair is that the community only hears, you know, partial information. We don't, you know, I don't know if those reports are available as they continue to develop, you know, whatever it is that they're doing. You don't get the full reports, you know, and they say that they are available, but they're not. You know, you only hear, you know, through the city council just what they want, what they want us to hear, but it's not the full. You know, it's not the actual information that we're looking for or that the residents are looking for. And so I just think that's just, I don't know, to me it just doesn't sound right, because we're not a big city like Pasadena. We're not a big city, you know, or we don't even have enough restaurants or things that would sustain the health department. So I think we're going to end up paying a lot more money. And so does it really make sense? You know, I don't know. You know, that's just, I don't know. But I think you have, you know, you're sharing really, you know, crucial information, and the community needs to be aware.
Right. And to your point, talking about reports, how they're not shared, a great example is there are currently 2 investigations. There are multiples, but there are 2 specific that I'll highlight. There was a fire department badge pinning ceremony. So when new officers or new firefighters come in, they have a badge pinning ceremony where they're able to have their badge pinned. Usually it's by a family member or someone close to them. And there's a ceremony for it. It's really special. For anyone who's passed the academies and been hired, it's an extremely special moment to have a family member or special person pin your badge for the first time. They had a badge pinning ceremony over at I believe it's Station 2, over at the Cameron Community, or Cortez Park, sorry.
Yeah.
And so they had a badge pinning ceremony, and Tony was upset that State Senator Josh Newman was not given an opportunity to speak at that event, and went off on Fire Chief Vincent Capelli to the point where he used foul language and threatened violence.
In front of the
It wasn't on the stage, but it was definitely at the event. There were numerous people that were there. Our police chief was there. Our city manager, Dave Carmody, was there. Numerous city staffers, upper management, families. Vince Capelli's family was there, I believe, as well. And so you have all these people at this very prestigious, very uplifting event, and all of a sudden it gets negative, right? Tony goes off to the point where even Councilwoman Rosario Diaz is quoted in the memo saying that this isn't his show, and she leaves, talking about Tony Wu. So this ended up being an investigation that was started because Chief Capelli, as he should, felt like it was out of line. It was a hostile workplace. And so he filed a complaint. That complaint was then turned over by the city manager, Dave Carmody, to the Human Resources Department for investigation. Standard operating procedure, right? This is how it normally is done. A memo was submitted with some of the facts. That memo, if you would like to see a copy, is on the Tony Wu Recall page at TonyWuRecall.com. That memo from the city is there, highlights all the event. And then what happens is they go through and they say, we're going to do an investigation about this incident. That investigation has been allegedly wrapped up and completed for many months now. But the city is refusing to release the results. So when you get into situations like an HR investigation, it is proven that most cities will release those with redactions. You want to protect the employees, the witnesses, things along those lines, right? But the person who is accused, their name stays, and the facts of the case stay in there, and then there's usually a result. It usually is not guilty or not guilty. It's substantiated or unsubstantiated. It's usually the way it comes out, and it's done usually by a third-party investigation, not usually done by internal staff, because you have a bias, especially when it's a council member.
Right.
You have a perceived bias, so it needs to be done by a third party, usually a law firm. There's a few that are out there that are famous for doing these and finding results. We have another elected official who had one done to them where they were accused of a hostile workplace about a decade and a half ago. That report was available publicly. I actually have it. It's all redacted. It's done exactly the way it should have been. That was released under a council that feels as though the public should know. This council, according to the report, allegedly substantiates the fact that Tony was out of line. That's the alleged results of the report. There are people that have read the report. There are people that have seen the report, and I'm aware of what's in that report. I don't have the report. It's been requested on public records requests. It's been requested publicly. They refuse to release it. One can only assume that Tony is found not credible and, in essence, culpable for creating these violent threats. That's one of investigations. The other one was he actually threatened to hit City Manager Dave Carmody in the face at a meeting. That memo is also on our website. So when you talk about reports, where are these reports? Show us that you didn't do something. And these are what the public want to know.
Yeah.
The public needs to know.
What I'm learning from you is, and I've been learning from you, and being a part of this, the GWC is getting involved as a resident.
Right.
Because if we don't, we allow council members to do whatever they want.
Correct.
Because we're not being that voice, because things get passed, and then we later on, what's going on? But we as residents, even where I live now, I need to go and get involved and find out what's happening in my city. And I believe the residents here in West Covina need to find out what's happening, what's happening in their city, because, wow, it's like if you don't know, shame on you. Because then when it does hit you, you can't really complain because you didn't really do anything about it in the first place.
Correct. A great example of that is we have roughly 105 to 110,000 residents in the city of West Covina. Of that, about half of them are registered voters. So in our recall, we're working in District 5. That's Tony Wu's district. It's more or less the east side of West Covina. There are 12,500 registered voters out of about 20,000 residents. And as we're going through and knocking on doors, which, by the way, we're currently in the petition collection phase. What that means is we're collecting signatures to get this on the ballot. We are finding that the vast majority of people, when we knock on their door and they come to the door, and we explain to them what's going on and we show them the things that we can back up our claims, they have no problem signing. In fact, most people are signing very, very easily. A lot easier than we anticipated when we first started this. So that is going well. That is going extremely well. But the issue is, like you just said, about half or 3/4 of those we have to educate at the door and show them. I'll give them credit. They don't just jump on and go, sure, I'll sign. They want proof. So we'll show them newspaper clippings, articles. We'll send them to our website, which has a number of things on there. And it just builds that story. And in some cases, they may not sign instantly. They may say, come back tomorrow, or come back, which we do, and they'll sign. And that has been wonderful. But the education, the number of people in the city, like you're saying, that don't know is huge. When I got involved, I started getting involved in the early 2000s, and it's because I started running I was president of a Little League. And in being a president of Little League, you start working with the city to run this league, right? You have to use our city park and fields and facilities, and so you're constantly meeting and going to things and getting things handled from a standpoint of events. That got me more interested in what's going on. At that time, we had a very wonderful council that was very supportive of youth sports. So it was very nice. It was very easy. I ended up becoming a commissioner because of it. I served on a commission for almost 10 years. Nice. So I got involved in the city in a much more deeper way. I was on community and senior services for that time and loved it. I loved being involved. I went to numerous events, met numerous people. That's how I started the podcast, because I knew people needed to be educated. And what better way than when they're driving their 30 minutes, 40 minutes, 2-hour drive commute each day, each way, than to listen about a city that they live in or a city they want to know about.
Of course. No, I think that's wonderful. I actually think that's wonderful. But we sometimes, every now and then, like, people will call us and ask us questions about certain things that are going on with city government. And, we can't answer those questions because we need facts, and if you don't have facts, it's just because so-and-so said and so-and-so said. We try to avoid that.
Correct.
Only because, we have to maintain neutral, but at the same time, personally, we're allowed to have our own opinion, but we don't really share that, we just tell people, watch the city council meetings, go there and talk about your issue, but it's just one person, they might not care. You know what? You have to be persistent if you care that much about your business. If you care about what you're doing. Now, if you're a resident, that's a little different. That you have to, that's what they're for, is to give the residents a voice and the businesses a voice. And if we're not doing that, we have nothing to complain about.
Yeah,
You know?
here in the city, we've got wonderful people. I mean, I've had the pleasure of meeting thousands upon thousands of people, both when I campaigned for city council in 2020, when I was a commissioner, when I worked in the Little League, just growing up. I mean, everything. I rode my bike as a kid all over this town. I used to hang out in the West Covina Mall back before Macy's was here, right? Long before they were remodeled. And so, there's so much here, and it's so beautiful. But we've got to learn what's going on in the city. We've got to be here. We've got to be invested in it. And many people aren't, unfortunately. But for those of us that are, we're trying to make it right, or at least make it better for everyone, both for us and for the future of the city.
Because you're invested here, because you care about your city, and leaders are supposed to unite people,
Yes.
not separate people.
Correct.
And currently, I feel like there's a lot of separation amongst so many different groups, and so we have to be involved in our communities, and try to bring everybody together. We can all disagree on different things. But when you start harming people in various ways, shame on you.
Yeah, and one thing that I've learned being involved in various political things that I've been involved in, like I was a part of the No on Measure WC, which was a sales tax. We defeated that 80% vote, basically no sales tax increase in the city. And now being involved in this one, the one thing I've learned is you're always going to have people you differ with, both ideologically, politically, personally, whatever it may be, and that's okay. We're human. We're allowed to differ. And I'm very direct in my comments a lot of times, and sometimes I get flack for it. People don't like how direct I am. But the reality is I'm passionate. I love certain things, and so you have to be willing to put your thoughts out there, let people hear them. I'm not afraid to have someone tell me they don't like my idea. But in working in these recall and working in the previous campaigns and things that I've been a part of, I've worked with people that we are completely opposite sides of topics. There are people that were opposite me in Measure WC that are completely supportive of me in the recall, right? Someone who was absolutely for the tax is now 100% for the recall. Different situations, and so we all have that. We just have to learn as people that yes, we're going to disagree, and some of that stuff may be important stuff, and we're never going to agree on that. That's okay, but we have to get our voice out. And so what I try to get people to understand with any council member, and I have conversations even with the ones that I'm not big fans of, you have to listen to the residents. And when you don't, a recall happens, right? When you stop listening, when you stop doing what's right or what the majority of the people think is right, you face recall. So a recall is there for people who are doing things illegal in office, people who are doing things unethical in office, and who are not responsive to the residents in office. That's why there's recalls.
Correct.
And so without that option, we have no redress of what they're doing. But in our situation, just kind of go back, we believe that by removing Tony Wu, we will fix or at least start the repair process of the city of West Covina.
Wow. This topic is just so interesting, but you know what? We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we're going to continue this conversation, because we want you to share with everybody, how important it is, where we're at, and what do the residents need to do in order to, make this thing happen.
No problem. Glad to do it.
We're going to take a short break, everybody. We'll be right back.
Hey everyone, this is Danielle with Prospectors Federal Credit Union. I hope you guys are enjoying the show. Just wanted to let you know that Prospectors, we offer a variety of products and stuff for all ages and all types of areas that you might need banking. We're really focused on our youth, as I have mentioned many times in the past. Just celebrated our Youth Month for April, but we're still focused for those kids. We offer checking, savings, equity lines, credit cards at low rates. We can also do auto loans, new and used. And for some of those businesses out there that are sole proprietors or DBA, meaning you are using your social instead of a tax ID number for the business, we can help in that area as well. You can actually locate us at either West Covina, right there off of Lakes, or in Diamond Bar. You can reach us directly at 909-396-9688. And if you want to reach me directly, you can get my extension at 2240. Look forward to seeing you guys soon. Bye.
What's up, everybody? Hope you're enjoying the show. Just want to come in real quick to remind you, Cardon Media, we've expanded. Great news. Now we got the new business section, and we got our branding and marketing. So remember, whether you want to get on a billboard, business cards, set up your business, whatever you want, we got you covered. And we also publish the San Gabriel Valley Now magazine. So follow us, SGV.now. Let's get back to Jared and Monica.
So welcome back, everybody. We just took a short break, but before we went on break, we've been having this great conversation with our dear friend Steve Bennett, and so back to your podcast. In 2022, you had a series of different candidates that you interviewed. What was that experience like?
Well, it was great. So again, one of the things when I started the podcast, I wanted to help educate the public. I wanted to get people aware of what's going on. The city has always had some form of what's called a candidate forum, where as a candidate you go and you answer questions, kind of like a debate, right? But it's a little more controlled. You're not really fighting like you see on the presidential debates, where they're bickering back and forth and calling each other liars. It's not quite like that at all. It's much more mellow. But you're asked questions, and most of the questions are submitted by the residents or by somebody you never really know, and they're filtered and then they're asked, and then every candidate is asked the same question. You're answered it. The problem with those, the only issue I have with them as being a part of one is you start on one side of the dais, and by the time you get to the other side, the other person's had 15 minutes to figure out what their answer is based on everyone else's answer. Now, they do rotate who starts and where it goes. I get that, so everyone's kind of deer in the headlights.
Make it fair,
Try to. But you still have time to think of your answer, and you have time to hear somebody else, and you don't get a chance to rebut what they said. So it's a real difficult thing. I wanted something a little more transparent. So I came up with, I'm going to do a candidate series. I'm going to invite every potential candidate, someone who'd filed papers, I waited for that to happen, to the show. This included everyone from District 5, District 4, and District 2, as well as our treasurers and clerks. Our clerk was unopposed. I didn't have him on the show because who's he running against? I asked all of the treasurers. The only one that showed up that was a candidate was Sue Agino. She came and did the show. The elected city treasurer who ended up winning and who was elected, Colleen Rosati, she did not come on the show. In District 5, Tony Wu was asked to come on the show. He refused, would not come on the show. But I interviewed a couple of people from District 5. I interviewed Fred Sykes. District 4, you get there. I interviewed Oli Cantos, who's the elected city councilman now. I've interviewed Daniel Luna. And then so you go down the list. District 2, Letty was unopposed, so I didn't really interview her. I would have loved to. She was invited. She chose not to, just like Rosario Diaz as a candidate. I'm sorry, not her. Dario Castellanos wasn't running, so he didn't get invited, although I have asked him on the show. He's declined. And so there was a number of these people. What's cool about it, I took every single one of them. None of them saw the questions ahead of time. None of them saw the answers of the other people. They were recorded individually, and the shows were all released at the same time. What did this do? It gives them no opportunity to hear what the other person's answer was. They had to give their answer. And you got to hear where they stood on some of the most important topics. So if you go to the podcast, you can actually listen where these candidates were at that time and find out if they're holding true to their promises or if they're not. And you're going to find with any politician, sometimes they promise something that they can't deliver, especially if they've never been in office, they don't know what they can't do. And then there's other people who overtly lie and tell you about something to get elected. I'm not going to put that on anyone in my podcast. I think they were honest. And they were great information. And most of them, if you've been involved in the city, you know kind of where they stood. But again, nobody heard any other answer. Nobody got to hear the questions. Nobody knew where it was going. They just had to answer them on the fly. And it was a really cool process.
Awesome. And they can still find it right now. It's up.
Oh, yeah, you can go listen to them now. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And I intend to do that again with the next elections. I hope to redo that series, at least come out of hiatus for that, because I do think, look, for the podcast, I got a lot of compliments on that. And again, I'm not one who has an ego and anything like that, but a lot of people really liked the fact that it was, for the most part, unbiased, and they could hear from the candidate directly. I didn't get into my opinions. I just asked the question, moved on.
Oh, I like that.
And so people were able to hear where they stood. And all of the feedback, with the exception of a couple that were kind of mediocre, because I don't think that they liked how their candidate answered the question personally. But either way, most of it was very, very positive that, hey, this is great. And a lot of people liked it better than the forum where you could, and like I said,
I like that. I like that a lot too. Maybe you never know. I mean, maybe we could team up where it's video and audio.
I told you I have a face for radio.
No, that's who he looks like? I like his voice better.
Yeah. No, I think I attended a couple of them at City Hall, and they were very interesting because they don't when you're face to face with one of them, they talk to you about, they're very natural as they talk about what they're passionate about. On when they were sitting, on the dais when they were being asked the questions, their answer was totally different than what initially they had said. And I don't know if it's because they get nervous or maybe, because they hear other answers that sound so good and so they try to change it. And to me, it's just be yourself. Just be yourself, because at the end of the day, if you're not yourself, it's just not going to go good.
Yeah. So the thing, it used to be ran by the West Covina Improvement Association.
Yeah.
And so that was who ran it. They're basically a nonprofit community group. Most of their leadership has unfortunately passed on or have left the group. So they're still trying to function from what I hear, but they're not as involved. But yeah, during one of the elections, I think it was 22, the city declined to let the WCIA run it, and they actually asked for, I think it was 2020 actually, I think it was mine, they had somebody from a political sci department in one of the local colleges come run it because they felt there were people at the city, and I'm going to carefully say that one of them is a guy I'm recalling. The rumor is that he didn't like the fact that they were quote unquote not fans of his and they were going to be biased. And again, it's transparency. Just let people ask the questions and answer. And again, that's just what I heard. It's a rumor. We talk about, you hear things in the city all the time. Is that true? I don't know. But I can tell you that based on all the things that I'm familiar with, it wouldn't be surprising.
Right, because, I mean, it's not good to judge, but when you see a track record of something, then you're like, well, it's just proven automatically and stuff. So, but back to the recall. So where is the recall now? I mean, where is it? What do you need? I mean, what more steps you guys are taking? So enlighten us.
Well, so it's a long process. A lot of people ask these questions. First of all, for anyone who doesn't know, as I mentioned before, go to our website, TonyWuRecall.com. That will give you a lot of information, and if anything, it'll generate questions. By all means, email us. We have people watching the email to respond. Call us. We have people on phones that can return calls. But here's where we are. So on February 6th, Tony Wu was served what's called a Notice of Intent to Recall, or an NOI. So the Notice of Intent outlines various things that we believe are causes for an action to be recalled. I actually brought a flyer with me, which looks like this, and if you happen to see one on your doorstep in District 5, but it outlines the exact things that we served him with, called the Notice of Intent, all of the things that we wanted him to know why we're recalling. And so that was something where we thought it was important for people to understand. Then from February 6th, now a whole bunch of dates happened. We had to submit to the city clerk various documents. We had to publish the Notice of Intent in a newspaper, which we did. That had to be filed with the city, and ultimately our petition was approved on March, I want to say 13th or 14th of this year, and we have 120 days to collect a qualified number of signatures, which is 2,500. The goal is to collect more than 3,000, because there are people that will sign who maybe aren't a registered voter by accident or may not be registered at that address. We know there's going to be signatures that are going to be what's called disqualified, so we need to have plenty to make up so that when we end up, we have the 2,500 required. To where we are right now, there's two things that we need. We need a lot of signatures. Well, three things. We need a lot of signatures. We're doing quite well. We're on track right now to exceed our goal. If we get there, Tony Wu will appear on the ballot. So far, we are doing very, very well. The second thing we need is we always need more people to help us collect those signatures. We have all of the documents, all of the canvassing sheets, but we need people who are motivated to go get Tony Wu out of office, to knock on doors and say, hey, please help us, sign here, you're a registered voter, all those things. We're not set up in front of stores too much. We've done a few, but we don't do a lot of them because, unfortunately, you don't get a lot of District 5 people, right? Then the last thing we need is the one thing that every campaign needs, and that's money. Every campaign needs money in order to succeed in what they're doing. To print flyers, to have things like signs, which I was hoping you guys might ask what I was doing these days. I brought a Tony Wu sign, recall Tony Wu. And so, you're going to see yard signs out there. You're going to see a number of things going on over the next few months. But the one thing that has to happen is we have to have money to pay for all this stuff. And so we need money. I tell people all the time, if you've got $10, $20, $50, $99, $100, $250, $650, that's the most we can take in City of West Covina. We would love to have your contribution to help us obtain our goal. Once we get him on the ballot, we have a campaign to run. We're going to be, again, going out and knocking on doors and asking for your vote, not just your signature now, but your vote. The overall answer is, if we get him on the ballot, polling shows that he will be removed. So the key is we've just got to get him on the ballot. The answer, though, is we need people to help collect signatures, and we need people to, unfortunately, I know money's tight, but we need money to help us get to this. If you think Tony Wu's doing a bad job, please contribute to our campaign.
Interesting.
And so they can find all this information on the website that you made mention of, correct?
www.tonywoorecall.com, and you can do online contributions. So you'll be able to go online, put in a credit card or a debit card number, and you can actually donate online. So anyone can donate. It does require some information to be filled out, which like any credit card scenario would be, but all of that money comes directly into the account, and we can use that. And so right now, we have to have all signatures submitted to the city clerk no later than July 10th. Which means we have about 80-ish days left to get all of those signatures. And like I said, it's going well, but anyone who's out walking right now, God bless their heart, they're doing a great job. I'm sure they're getting tired.
It's a lot of work.
It is a lot of work.
It's a lot
I know
of
when you
work.
say that, I'm thinking about it right now. I'm like, wow.
And you get a lot of people that, may not be home, so you're knocking on doors that may not be there. But it's a lot of work. And so to expect 1, 2, 4, 10, 20 people to walk a total of 120 days to get all these signatures, it's kind of a little bit of a stretch. You got to have more people that are willing to jump in later as people start getting tired or need to take breaks. I mean, people have lives, right? They have families. They may be having a vacation scheduled. They're not going to walk for a week or so. So we need people who can walk. And then people who can't walk, let us know. We'll get you a phone list. You can call the people and ask them, hey, are you willing to sign? We have people doing that currently. It's really, honestly, it's an all-hands-on-deck situation, and we have a lot of people involved. And like I said, I've been a part of a number of things. Measure WC was a campaign that, for me, was successful. We were 80% voted it down, and this has a lot of those same successful characteristics that we had with that Measure WC campaign. We are doing a great job. It's going exceptionally well.
That's awesome.
And that is huge.
Yeah.
But if we don't continue at that pace, it can change.
Right.
Yeah.
I have,
So
can I
cur-
ask one more question?
I'm sorry. So currently, the signatures
That's a
are
no.
required. Yeah, the signatures are required from District 5.
Yes.
But if anybody wants to donate, the money could come from anyone in the city, correct?
The only
Or-
thing you can't be is a foreign national, and you have to be over 18. So as long as you're somewhere in the a U.S. citizen type thing, and I don't know, or foreign national or under the age of 18, you can donate. The really cool thing is only people who donate $100 or more have to get reported on our campaign finance forms. So if someone wants to donate $99, they can stay unreported on the forms, because that is how the FPPC, the Federal or the Fair Political Practices Commission of California, governs that.
Oh, okay. So my question, teacher? No, no. So what I'm learning from you today is it's not a direct attack on an individual or on a council member. There is proven facts that is driving this recall, because some people might say, they just might not like him and they're just attacking him and that's why they're doing this. But hearing you today, I mean, we've listened to so many facts of it's not an attack.
No.
Correct.
And so that's the one thing you get in politics is the minute you're opposite something else, the other side goes, oh, you just don't like him, or oh,
Correct,
it's this,
yeah.
or oh, it's that. And they come up, insert whatever title they want to throw at you. This is not personal. I'll be honest. When Tony Wu ran in 2015, I endorsed him.
Oh,
I thought he would
wow.
be a good council member. And so I'm not ashamed to say that I actually endorsed him, thought he would be a good council member. And for the first year or two that he was on the council, he served with a council that didn't have his majority, as he puts it. He had people like Councilmember Corey Warshaw. He had Councilmember James Toma, Councilmember Lloyd Johnson, Councilmember Mike Spence. Those 5 people attacked these topics with much debate. And they had conversations, and they voted. Sometimes they voted with each other, sometimes they did not. There was no controlling majority on the council. There will be people that may say, yeah, they voted their majority this way or that. The vast majority of votes were very divided. They weren't necessarily 5-0 on things that didn't matter. When they're approving minutes of a meeting, I don't care if it's 5-0. Okay, I understand that's how the meeting went. But when they're actually talking budgets or they're talking about other things, you could hear them in these discussions and the votes. Now, in 2018, when he got elected, I didn't necessarily endorse, but I didn't necessarily oppose. But I didn't expect to see what I saw. And I can tell you, in talking to residents and talking to the people that I've talked to, a lot of people out there endorsed him. And they said, hey, yeah, he did good the first 2 or 3 years, 5 years, whatever it was. Maybe it was 2013 when he got elected. Either way. And so when he got reelected and then said he had his majority, and then basically chopped off the entire upper management of the city, that changes the overall dynamic of our city.
Right.
It changes. You have no institutional knowledge left when you get rid of everyone who's been here for years. I don't think everyone needs to be here for years. You have to bring in new blood to get new ideas.
Of course.
But you can't just knock off every single person above, department manager up and say bye. And they were either forced out or resigned in lieu of or fired. And so there's a number of things out there that show what you said. So you talk about facts. We try to make sure everything that we mention is factually accurate, or at least can be substantiated. The investigations, we have the memos on our website. Go read them. They're from the city of West Covina. We have the newspaper articles on various things posted on our website. You can link directly to various newspapers, from the San Gabriel Valley Tribune to Mount Sax Media, you name it. I have those on the website that we can cite over and over and over again. All of this stuff, including videos. There's when we first announced the recall, funny story, it was posted in the Tribune, and the lady who wrote the article did a great job, but like any good journalist, she called Tony and asked for his response. Completely respectful. I understand that's how politics
It's always
work.
done, yeah.
Right. So he gives an answer. One of the things we cite in the recall is the investigations into violence, into his threats of violence. And his reply on that article is, I'm a gentle soul. I'm paraphrasing a little. I'm a gentle soul. I'm not like that. I don't know what they're talking about. And again, I'm paraphrasing a little bit. Go read the article. It's linked on our website. So ironically, the very next council meeting, former council member Jessica Shoemaker shows up at the council chambers and basically calls him a liar and says, you yelled at me. You screamed at me. Don't sit here in this paper and say these things when you know that is absolutely factual.
Wow.
And then says that there are employees that are probably not speaking up because they're afraid of losing their job. That video is on our website. If you want to hear her words, it is powerful. And it contradicts everything Tony said.
Interesting.
Wow.
Interesting.
Wow. Well, you definitely educated us. If anybody wants to get involved with, the recall, make sure you guys go onto the website, TonyWuRecall.com, and either contribute or give your signature, but make sure that you are reading the facts and that, do the right thing for our city. Our city needs to move forward, not backwards. So, so thank you so much to you and to all the committee and to all those that are, that are walking out there, that are talking to people, that are educating the community about what currently is going on. Thank you for your passion for the city of West Covina. I know what that's like because I feel the same way. Well, we feel the same way.
Exactly.
We're very passionate about the community that we live, that we work at now. But I lived here for many years, and I know, and we want to like I said, we want to move forward, and we want to support all those that want to be supported. But we need to speak. We need to give you need to know that your voice matters.
Yes.
Absolutely, and I can tell you, for what you guys do here at the GWC and everything, it is extremely important that you guys are doing what you're doing, because these small businesses need our support as much as we need good council members. We need people like you. One matter of point, I will tell you, when they got all that ARPA funds, the American Rescue Funds money from the federal government, some of that money could have been used for small businesses and support from COVID and recovery. Not a single penny of $20 million was allocated to small businesses in the city of West Covina. And when they were questioned on that during the meetings, they said that they had other things they needed to use it for. So what they bought was $900,000 into a health department that we're going nowhere with. They bought fire apparatuses. They bought scuba gear for the fire department. Again, needed stuff, not saying it's not, but you should see the laundry list of things that were done with that nearly $20 million. Not one penny went to small business in the city of West Covina. So when they tell you, when Tony says he's pro small business, ask him, show me the proof. Anyways, and then my podcast, I'm going to plug it one last time because you mentioned the recall, but why I was here was the podcast. It is Talk to Us West Covina. You can find us on just about every podcast thing, from Apple Podcasts, Google, you name them. We're on just about every Spotify, everything. So it is Talk to Us West Covina. Please come out, listen to the podcast. I can't say watch because I said I got a Facebook radio. But again, I wanted to plug it one last time. Thank you so much.
No, thank
for
you.
having me.
Thank you for coming
I'll
out.
come here anytime you guys
Thank
want
you.
me.
Thank
Right.
you. No, we always enjoy the conversations with you. But with that, we're going to say, have a great evening. Thank you for following us and for liking, our show. Don't forget, every Tuesday at 6 p.m. on YouTube and Facebook.